This is day 2 of the February 94 7-day retreat at Springwater. Yesterday in a meeting someone said, "You didn't get to the last question yesterday. Why am I here?" So we'll take that as our first question today. Actually, the way it was asked was not, "Why am I here on this earth?" which the question in the meeting wanted to go into. But here, at a retreat center, what am I doing here? I don't have a practice. Do you have one to give me? We could search for many causes which bring us to a place like this. And many wants which bring us here, many different wants. Wanting to find some peace and quiet, some seclusion, some quiet contact with nature. Enlightenment. Some people mention that or have it in their mind. I want to find or get enlightenment. Many reasons. But here we are. This moment. Why are we here? What does here mean? We ask about something that normally we're very remote from, or seemingly remote from, which is here-ness, now-ness. And what is that? To be here, now, completely. No reservations, no holding back, no feeling of effort and exertion. Because when that takes place, when that happens on its own, this being here as no one special, not feeling apart from it, just the here-ness of it, then there is no question of why am I here. Because that part of the intellect which always wants to have explanations is quiet. So then is the next question, how can I get here? I want to be here. It sounds good what you say. Give me a practice so I can practice being here. But there is no practice for it that I know of. Even though I have gone through all kinds of practices in the past. Were they causally related to being here? I can't say that. Here-ness, being here happens. Suddenly, unexpected. And yet we talk a lot about listening and looking while sitting, experiencing, feeling, being in touch. We talk about that. Because maybe by talking about it, talking together about it, hearing it, wondering about it, there can be a growing awareness of what it is that's going on when I say I'm here, or I say I want to be here. So what's actually going on? Not the projected perfect state of here-ness. To busy the mind with that is futile. It's our usual busying the mind with ideal goals of attainment. But maybe what can be come upon quite easily is what is actually going on, this moment. The reason it seems so difficult that there's always the urge that there be something else going on, or the desire that something else be going on, rather than what is actually happening. The mind is filled with thoughts, a pressure in the head. We don't want that. But it's there. When it's there, it's there. Can it be allowed to be there, uncriticized, unevaluated? Not knowing what to do about it, or whether there is something that can be done about it. Just a steadiness of awareness of what's there, without meddling with it, or any need to meddle with it. If the need comes up, can that be reflected in this steadiness of awareness? You can say, well, this awareness here isn't steady. Most of the time I'm asleep, a dream, fantasizing, dull, a dull sense, dreamy. So that's what's there. To be able to report about it, talk about it, there has to be awareness of it, or else there would be no way of knowing at all what is going on, or reporting about it. So not to underestimate the awareness that is there. It gets so swamped by the evaluation of the habitual evaluation of what is seen and felt and experienced to be there. That takes over, overrides this very subtle awareness of the heaviness in the head, the pressure, the thoughts, the dullness, numbness is reported often. I feel so numb, particularly in the first 1, 2, or 3 days of a retreat. Don't get discouraged over it. Or if discouragement sets in, let it find its place in the awareness. Feeling of numbness, and then the thought, storyline, oh, I'm in a hopeless case, I'm always numb, and somebody else is more sensitive. When will it ever happen to me? Probably never. Such thoughts take over and spin and weave this cocoon of self-enclosure. And yet, in spite of it all, there are flickerings of awareness, or else one wouldn't be able to talk about it, to criticize it, to reflect upon it. So this is the question now. Is it possible to be aware of whatever is going on this moment? Pain, sadness, thought, involvement, criticalness. And let it be. The joyous thing that's happening is that there's an instant of awareness. That's the beauty of this moment. Not what it is that it reflects or sheds light on. That's just the normal course of changing states of mind, which happen for all human beings, constantly changing states of mind, which are taken so seriously, believed in to be so true, so real, representing reality. And can that just shift, turn about? So the important thing, the essential thing is an instant of waking up, being attentive, and not fretting over or clinging to or trying to get rid of what it is that is revealed at a moment of attention. To let it be. Albeit reactions making themselves felt to want to do something about it, or to put it down, put it up, dislike it, or want more of it. Can that all become felt, seen, heard? All the reactiveness of this moment. Because the field of awareness, if we can use that word, is infinite. It has no limitations, no borderlines, no time frame, no preferences, no right or wrong. Space for everything to come and go freely on its own. If you wish to call that a practice, then it's all right. I don't care what labels one gives to what happens when one sits down or walks quietly. Practice, the word to me has a repetitive ring, doing something in order to get better at it. A certain mechanicalness, repetitiveness of repeating a word or a thought or attention, putting it certain places in the body. If that's what you wish to do, feel free to experiment with it. There's always the breathing. There isn't a spiritual training that I'm aware of in any tradition which does not have some interest or focus on the breathing. Probably many, many reasons the breathing is always there as long as we're alive. It's always there. Couldn't live without it. And it changes constantly from in-breath to out-breath to in-breath to out-breath. Shallow ways, deep ways, choppy ways. It's always there. So at one moment of waking up from dream and fantasy, self-criticism, imagining oneself someplace else, whatever all has gone on, there's the breathing, it's there, and it's been going on. It goes on while we're in deep, unconscious sleep. Breathing goes on. We're not doing it. We're not the operator of it or responsible for it. It's happening. It's very miraculous if one gets very intimately in touch with it without trying to control it or make something out of it more than what it already is. An unfathomable mystery, this breathing. And it happens no matter what the state of body, mind, or interrelationship may be. There's breathing going on. So that is maybe why it has become such a tool in spiritual practice, something to concentrate upon, to be attentive to. Here I'm not talking about concentrating on it, because then it becomes a task, again, linked to all of our conditioned yearning for success and fear of failure, and comparison with others. Am I doing it as well as? Comparison with oneself. I did it better last retreat. So it better be as unburdened, untainted as possible with our motives. And just heard, felt, seen, been, breathing. in the midst of pain or sorrow, happiness, elation, or down feeling, is always breathing to be felt and heard. It doesn't need to be forcefully zeroed in on, because then it becomes an exclusive practice. Exclusive meaning fighting the distractions that would keep us from concentrating on the breathing. And the battle is on. The inner battle of right over wrong, success over failure. So, let it be with everything else. Let it be felt. Breathing right through the deepest of pain, psychological or physical. It has that quality of total simultaneity. The breathing is the cawing. The breathing is the paining or the sorrow, or the thinking or the changing of thinking. That's what's been observed by people who thousands of years ago have observed breathing, that with every change of in to out and out to in, thought changes. The thought stream takes a change. That's why to really hold on to the breathing, concentrate on it, there can be control with that over the stream of thoughts. I don't know what you're interested in. I'm not interested in controlling thought. Because then there is set up the controller. Again, the same scheme. Striving to get better, to get stronger and more powerful, to obtain victory, to overcome. Which is all thought. Thought in battle against thought. What's the use of it? It uses a lot of energy. So, if there's a waking up to a thought stream that has just happened and it still reverberates in the memory, one can be aware of it, even at this moment of no thought, but the thoughts that just went on in the mind or the dreams, they're right there, can be seen at a glance. Without needing any further doing. Awareness is sufficient. It has an inbuilt wisdom. Awareness has inbuilt wisdom. And it's not just on off, because there's such involvement with the reaction to what has been revealed. So, why do battle with thoughts? Rather be aware of what's happening and see thoughts coming and going. Usually it's in memory. Because it depends on what the quality of thought is. If it's a sticky, me-centered thought, the awareness will be gone, or seems to be gone, because now the stickiness of me and my needs and fears takes over the body-mind. Not just intellectually or verbally, but every fiber of this body is involved in its sticky thoughts about me, my past, my future, my sorrow, my fears, my pleasures. The whole organism, every fiber, every cell, every organ, gland, and muscle is involved in thinking. The body itself holds memories, which can be experimented with. It's a marvelous discovery when in sitting and there's some awareness and a tension, not attention, but a tension is noticed. chest, solar plexus, in the belly, wherever, shoulders, tight shoulders and neck. This tension comes into awareness. And by allowing it to be there, to show itself, not to be resisted with I shouldn't be or that, this or other injunctions, just allowing the tension with its pain and discomfort to be there, unobstructed by reaction against it, physical or mental reaction. Then sometimes some thoughts bubble right out of it. The thought, I should, I must, I can't. I did something wrong. These thoughts are held in the neck or shoulder or chest, solar plexus. And reveal themselves. And once revealed, this doesn't have to continue. Because it's quite clear at this moment we must nothing. There's nothing we must do or should do except for the idea that we must or should do things. In reality, we're here quite free to be what we are. No one evaluating us. No tests to pass. No progress to report. No obligations except an hour of work in the kitchen or in the bathroom or toilets. So in this marvelous state of freedom that we're in here, on a beautiful foggy hill, with birds twittering around, the snow receding and the grass reappearing, we can just be what we are and see it, hear it, feel it, experience it directly without any need to feel shame or fault. Feeling shame or fault is a pattern to be observed in awareness. Very ancient pattern with which we grow up, in which we're early enmeshed by parents, elders, teachers, brothers and sisters who also are ashamed or feel fault and guilt, and we pass it on to each other. Actually, a human being is often more amenable to being controlled when he or she feels guilty or at fault. The desire to be back in the good graces, to be loved, to be forgiven, makes us very manipulatable pawns. So that guilt-producing can be a device for controlling each other. And we've all learned it because we've learned it even without intellectualizing about it as children. I don't know whether you grew up feeling guilty. I felt guilty all the time for everything. And because of that was very good. I was the good girl in the family, probably the one that felt most guilty. And then realizing one day in being with family, our son, that I was using this. Oh, it didn't work on him. He was wonderful in this respect. And he became more balky. I couldn't lay the guilt trip. At least I felt it didn't work. He would get mad at me or angry for whatever reason. So, we're sidetracked a little bit. Main thing is not to believe that we're guilty or at fault, but to see it, to let it come out, reveal itself in daylight. Even though it's a little foggy, it doesn't it doesn't take all the light away, the fog. It's not easy. We're very conditioned, all of us. It's not easy to really freely let be what happens and learn as we go about all of these conditioned patterns. But it's possible. And with that, some of these conditioned patterns of guilt, shame, fault, fear, whatever, become more transparent. Their origin in the conditioned body-mind, through contact with other conditioned human beings, becomes very evident. Therefore less threatening, less real. It's all a shadow play that we're engaged in since we were born, maybe before then. Because the moods of the mother, it's now being experimented on in very interesting ways. The moods of the mother and the chemicals that are associated with the moods of the mother, the fears or the anger, despair, which causes chemicals to flow, have an impact on the embryo and the fetus. Can already be some addiction to these chemicals before we're even out. Sometimes somebody will say, oh, when you talk, it's all very interesting and alive, but then when I sit down, nothing is going on. Is that true? And if so, what is nothing? I'm interested. Listening to nothing. Aware of nothing. And maybe watching the mind want something to happen. So there's wanting going on, isn't there? Wanting for something in the midst of nothing. Or a slight mood of frustration over nothing going on. That's happening. Awareness can uncover subtler and subtler levels of our conditioned functioning. If there's some interest in what this body-mind manifests from moment to moment, without needing to take it seriously, but yet interested in it, because it is representative of what all conditioned body-minds manifest. Conditioned feelings, conditioned thoughts and moods and reactions. And sometimes the opposite is mentioned, the opposite to nothing is happening. Someone will say, when I sit down, all chaos breaks out. Chaos of thoughts, and feelings, emotions, sensations. I can't pay attention to all of that. Why not? Awareness of chaos doesn't have to be tracking down all the details, but this turbulence. Awareness of turbulence and awareness itself, that's the amazing thing about it, is quiet. It is not a participant in the turbulence and yet not separate from it. It irradiates it. So there's all kinds of emotional, physical, sensual upheavals. Let them all be heard as a totality of movement. Heard, felt. I'm using different words, but it's the senses working as one whole perception. And the perception is the turbulence, the upheaval. when reactiveness is seen and therefore doesn't take over, the reactiveness of I wish I was feeling as calm as I did at the end of the last retreat. Where is that gone? Why do I keep going to retreat? A retreat is always the same thing at the first day. So this is how we talk. This is what the thought computer prints out all the time. These endless sheets of papers with holes on the sides. Not to be caught up in the reaction, because that ends the awareness. Then there's the spinning of the web of cocoon-like existence. Me and my sad fate. But awareness of reactiveness may keep that reactiveness from spinning. It's seen and it doesn't take over. So then, what's right or wrong about the turbulence, the turmoil, which has been caused by thoughts? This all becomes much clearer. It's caused by thoughts and memories and desires, and it's kept going and sustained by thoughts and memories and desires and fears. Desires and fears themselves being thoughts and imagination in action. All of that reveals itself when the reactiveness is not taking over, because it's seen for what it is, not based on any true premise, only conditioned right and wrong. Someone mentioned to me that yesterday in the talk, he felt the talk was sort of coming as what was the word? Exhortation, or admonishing. I don't mean to exhort anyone or admonish. But the intensity of talking may be very reminiscent of having been exhorted. I don't know the word very well. You know what I mean. Admonished. From the pulpit down. It's not what is meant to happen. If it's received this way, one can look and question it. I get sort of the energy carries away the presentation or the words. But it's not meant to, and the person didn't mean that. It was not meant in any finger-wagging way. I don't know how it's meant. I don't even mean it. I just talk. Talk about what is observed and experienced here and then conveyed, or in our relationship, what is revealed by people. And that becomes the thing to convey so that we can all learn about ourselves directly. So please, be careful in interpreting the presentation, because then a reactiveness could set in which would be unfortunate. It wasn't the case when we discussed it this morning. At least the person didn't feel reactive against this, because one could really become rebellious or saying, "Don't you tell me." And I'm not trying to impose, just there's an hour here scheduled for talk about what is happening to this body-mind from moment to moment, and maybe some other things. So how can we talk/listen without a conditioned imposition or feeling of imposition. Is that possible? To talk and listen without imposing or feeling imposed upon. I think it's possible. If the mind is clear of this me target, me identification, which either wants to impose or feels hurt by imposition, feels hit. We use this metaphor of a target in here. Wanting to target people or feeling targeted by people. If that program can go into abeyance, in the presence of collecting energies, gathering energies, self-gathering energies, then there is freedom to talk and listen. And not just freedom to talk and listen, but freedom. The freedom itself communicates itself, maybe non-verbally. In addition to the words, or beside the words, some other communication may be going on, in which there can be participation. The word is lacking. Participation, let's just leave that word. Participation in something non-verbal, beside the words. The freedom from target or targeting. Freedom from this me sense, which always interprets everything and reacts to everything and protects itself and attacks the other. And how can that happen? That freedom from the cocoon. I don't know how it can happen, but it happens. It happens in this presence of aliveness now. Where the energy of listening is the cracking of the chair or the breathing, the light, the heat, the cold, the birds and grass and clouds and fog. There's no cocoon in that. It's not needed. And out of this, if we look at cocoon living, it's become so transparent how limited and painful it is. Painful in its limitation. And hurts. And ill will. Someone asked about pain, feeling that no matter what posture is taken, there's pretty unbearable pain in the back, disturbing. Is there anything to be done about that pain while sitting? There's a certain readiness to sit, and yet this pain seems to cut across that readiness, seems to obstruct it. Sometimes pain in the beginning days of a retreat, it disappears after a while. Sometimes it doesn't. And one needs to really experiment with different sitting postures and lying down, maybe in between, lying flat on the mattress to relieve whatever muscles have spasms. Used to be watched very carefully when I trained that our backs were straight, but most of us were overdoing it then and getting pain from the overdoing, trying to have that straight back according to the image in one's own mind and in the mind of the people who walked around straightening out the backs. Sometimes people ask me, why don't you ever talk about posture? It's so important. That's the reason I don't, because it can be overstressed and then become a new problem. New problem of tightness to conform to image of posture. And yet, a relaxed straight back is in better shape than a bent back. I'm not talking right now about the straightness of idea, the rigidness. I'm not talking about this. So to have a relaxed, erect back, how do we come upon that? We have chairs here. Some people tell us they're not quite the right angles. One can improve a little upon them. When I sit on one of those mushroom chairs, I usually have a square, one of those thin square cushions in the back to keep it from sagging. Give it a little bit of support helps me. May not help someone else. To experiment with different ways of sitting, and if it becomes too unbearable, then take off the next rounds. There is no obligation to sit, because if one really feels and wants to sit quietly, well, there's also the sofa in the dining room and an easy chair to see, to play with it. But if the pain is there, during a round of sitting, we have agreed with each other not to run in and out during a round, then what to do with this overwhelming pain in the back during a round of sitting? My own past experience comes to mind of having a bad back. I've had it for many, many years. Didn't even know whether I could last through 2 days of Zen retreat. And it seemed I wouldn't, because these intolerable back pains appeared very soon. Because there you had no choice, you had to stick it out. Couldn't leave. Oh, I already noticed when the walking set in, where was that pain? It was gone. Walking was different. Sitting down for a while it was okay, and then it came again. So at one moment of wondering whether I would last the 2 days, it occurred that I didn't really know what this was. I had really known it because I had so much experience also with doctoring it, this pain, this back condition. So all the knowledge was superimposed upon what was happening now. Didn't help it. So this thought occurred that maybe I didn't know what was going on right now. And with the switch from all the knowing and anticipating on the basis of memory, switching to not knowing this and not even calling it pain anymore, it was different. There was a lot of heat in the back, which actually felt quite pleasant. It wasn't the same thing anymore. Once it was not known and not reacted to, and yet allowed to be in the field of attention. So, if that is of help, find out whether it's possible to be with pain, quote unquote, and not know it, not label it, not anticipate its future course. This again comes back, doesn't it, to being here with all there is, including whatever is going on there in the back. Not even localizing it. It's more knowing. It's amazing. It's possible to allow this body to do its thing without knowing it or localizing it. It's quite a shift. And the other amazing thing that happened at one point was that this back, which was double crooked, the spine, and always slouching, I was known for it, I was labeled for it in my family, suddenly in one sitting, in which the mind was empty, it erected itself. It straightened out. It was a marvelous thing. No will, no idea, something happened. That's another reason why I don't belabor the posture so much. It'll straighten itself out when the mind is freeing itself from all its ideas, should and ought and must not. Which doesn't mean the backache never comes back. These are more ideas. Let's meet it as it is, as it comes. That's enough. We will end here for today.